Good afternoon, everyone. Death Valley flash floods, record rains. Oh, wait, that was August 10th, 2022. Final totals are coming in about a year later, August 20th, 2023, smashing 2.75 times the total a year, along with the hurricane. Remember that 5.1 heat dome? Follow the trajectory of the hurricane. Speaking of that North American monsoon, we'll look at the 5 indicators of change, including intertropical convergence zone. Is nobody looking at the sun blasting out highest energy radiation ever recorded? The Maunder minimum shift in the intertropical convergence zone. We'll go back in time 8,000 years looking at the ICTZ and Africa tight during the 1980s in the flow. But whoa, what happened in the 1960s? This thing changes on decades as well. And we'll do a quick wrap up here. Finally, images coming out, the footage from California. Okay, there were some mudslides, yeah, record rain, sure. Stadium underwater, floods coming down the roads, but really, what was this atmospheric cavitation, this event here? Now, you can clearly see the line in the sky, for a better term. Smoke on the left, hurricane on the right. But really, look at the heat dome right here. Follow the trajectory of the hurricane, and you'll see how that blocking pattern set up to create the heat dome. There are other factors at work. And look for cool air to punch through and move that out of the way below normal temperatures inbound. First week and a half of September. In the same areas it's hot now. Back to Southern California. 5.1 magnitude quake, which was downgraded from a 5.5. Thank you, USGS. A hurricane along with tornado warnings. And see, that's one thing that should be addressed. They've been doing this for decade plus. Always downgrading the quakes. Are their monitors that terrible at recording information that almost every single earthquake needs to be downgraded from its initial magnitude? Can they not recalibrate to finally get it so when the quake strikes, it's actually the quake that's put into the books? Because that is just the normal for the USGS to downgrade. And especially if it's over 8.0, they always try to slot that down into the 7.0s. And if it's close to 7, they try to bring it down into the 6 because they don't want you to see the trend upward with the increasing magnetic field disturbances on the sun. They go hand in hand. Our Earth is electromagnetically connected to that big thing on the left out there called the sun. When it changes, our Earth changes. Jet streams, cloud cells, volcanism, and tectonic activity. But you can't show the uptick in the trend moving upward with larger magnitude quakes, now can you? People might wake up and ask why. So back to Southern California here. The purples, the browns, the grays, that's all record rainfall. And as you can see, it swept up through Death Valley. And this map was making it all around average precipitation in California. You can see down Southern California, 5, maybe up to 10 inches of rain per year. And they got that much in a single day. So I want to bring you over to Death Valley because this was all the rage. Death Valley, it's the most rain ever. See, it's, the humans have changed the climate and we're causing the Death Valley floods. But wait a second, Death Valley 1,000-year flood, August of 2022. A year ago. And if you look off the Terra and Aquamudis satellites, you can see here the Death Valley flash flooding pre and post July 11th compared to August 7th. Jerome Powell and the Fed raised rates for the 11th time in July. The Hill warned it's a mistake that could spark a recession. Economists believe this is the last rate hike in the most aggressive rate hike cycle in history. In fact, most economists are forecasting rate cuts in 2024. That's why bullish sentiment in gold for hedge funds just hit an 18-month high. Same could be said for the bullish sentiment on silver, which has risen at its fastest pace in 5 years. JP Morgan sees gold prices at record highs in 12 to 18 months. Rate hikes are typically headwinds for gold. Meanwhile, gold has gone up over 20% since 2022. Imagine where gold and silver are going to go when the Fed stops raising and starts cutting. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention the Adapt 2030 channel. They're going to give you some great service. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver on qualifying rollovers. Also, Patriot Gold Group, Consumer Affairs top-rated IRA gold dealer 6 years in a row. Give them a call, 888-546-7020. And now on with the video. But then we fast forward a year, August 20th, 2023, and we see the high risk there, that purplish color, 2.75 times the full yearly rain total in this single storm itself. Especially Palm Springs, you saw a lot of those different images of floods coming out of Palm Springs. But it doesn't seem that anybody's equating a lot of these changes we're seeing on the planet to solar activity. Here we go. This is off space.com. Just a couple weeks ago. Sun blast out highest energy radiation ever recorded, raising questions for solar physics. And the solar physicists, the experts, they can't explain why. Oh, wait. Some people can if you're looking at electromagnetism and changes on cycles that are mappable. Let's move over to the plasma bands above the Earth's equator. They don't follow our equator as we sit on the ecliptic, but they follow the magnetic equator and plus or minus 10 degrees north and south of what you know as the equator on those maps that we saw as kids. It's all interconnected. That magnetism, those lines, and also the ones coming in on the poles, that's connected back to the sun. So if there's changes on the sun, we are going to see changes on our planet. Let's look over at the International Geomagnetic Reference Field Model. Now this is 2005, and we're looking at the Z field intensity, vertical. Now I want you to look down at South America, and you can see from Brazil all the way down Uruguay into Argentina. Keep your eye on that line right there as we move into the 2018 magnetic model, and you'll start to see that that line has shifted in itself. So we're looking at full planet-wide magnetic shifts here. So if we look at these storms and the shifts in the North American monsoon as well as the West African monsoon, they're both shifting. But the thing is, they shift on 4,000-year cycles, which is incredibly interesting because they are both shifting and both on these larger, more massive time scales. So they've done a lot of back research on this, and since 2010, they've come up with this series of 5 different possibilities as to why these things shift in multi-century, multi-millennia, or just in a decade cycle, but they've pinned it down to these 5. Sea surface temperature anomalies. You hear everybody screaming about El Nino this year? Yeah, the check, that's one. Large-scale circulation patterns, cavitation on our planet's atmosphere, obviously after the Hunga Tonga eruption, adding 10% more moisture into the atmosphere, check. Previous year's precipitation, check. Location of intertropical convergence zone. So let's go back 8,000 years. I like longer time scales than just the satellite record to prove a point. So if you look up in the Yucatan Peninsula, there's a series of caves and also river basins and lake core drilling sediments that they've taken measurements from, and the Curacao Basin also. And you'll see how that over these multi-thousand-year cycles, this shifts. No SUVs, no airplanes. It moves because of cyclic activity in our sun. Now I'll bring you a little bit closer here. 400 years ago, this is a little ice age or the Maunder Minimum area. So if we have low galactic cosmic rays, that's what GCRs are, you'll get more of a northerly intertropical convergence zone shift. And if you get high galactic cosmic rays, meaning weakened magnetic field on our planet, allowing more galactic cosmic rays in. Shout out Heinrich Svensmark cloud mystery. You got to watch that one for sure. You're looking at the high GCR flux, which would bring it into a different flow completely. And are we not seeing that with the disturbance across all of Earth's atmosphere right now? Everywhere you look, there's extremes. But see, this was forecast to start happening the year 2020. Was going to be the amplification as we roll into this next grand solar minimum. Go out to solar cycle 26 and 27 and go into NASA and the European Space Agency and look at their solar forecast, the sunspot forecast for the next 2 solar cycles. We're going back into a Maunder Minimum-esque low period of solar activity for 2 full solar cycles. So you would expect massive changes happening right now as we descend off of this maximum, solar cycle 25, straight in Straight into a new grand solar minimum, food production being knocked out at the knees. There will not be enough food for 8 billion people. Oh, wait. How many restrictions are being put in place on meat? Well, if you can't grow the feed, you're not going to have enough to be able to feed your cows, pigs, chickens. Is that the whole messaging why we shouldn't eat meat now? Because they won't be even able to raise the animals because they can't get enough yield out of our normal crops in the fields? And there's a lot more at play here and a lot more going on than meets the eye. IPCC. And if you look at just the yearly shift from January to July over Africa, you can see how that moves. I'll bring you down in here to the yearly. So we'll just go through the 1980s. Report right here on annual fluctuations and displacement of intertropical convergence zones. I linked that into the description box. I know you're going to want to read that report. So it's a narrow band and very tight, as you see. That's the 1980s, but if we jump back 2 decades, look at how it shifted from the 1960s over Madagascar and down the east coast of Africa. And if we look from 2005 to 2013, whoa, what are those wide bands sweeping way up around in Pakistan and down the west coast of India? What's causing these changes? Not the airplane, not the SUV. Let's look at decadal cycles here, 48 to 57, 58 to 67. You can see all the way up to 2008, 2013. But again, 1948, 1957 flows are going way up around Pakistan and west coast of India. So now let's put the pieces together. If we know that solar activity changes the jet stream, solar activity changes the intertropical convergence zone, and those monsoons, whether it's North American or West African. Now when we see the dropouts here, everywhere you see a triangle, that is a grand solar minimum. When you go near or at 0 sunspots. Now the ones we see near the year 2000, the first one is the Dalton minimum. You go back, that's a Maunder minimum. You got the Sporter minimum, the Wolf minimum, the Oort minimum. And then we got to roll back, 500 years or so, and then we come in past BC or, birth of Christ time. And with that one step down, that is the Homeric minimum when we go back a little bit. Now, it gets murkier in the past. They don't even have names for those. But you can see this is a consistent pattern up and down in temperatures. Solar activity drives temperatures. Solar activity drives jet streams and cloud cells. Solar activity is responsible for the collapse of civilizations. Yet nobody wants to talk about in the modern era. Can it happen again? We are looking at a full collapse of our civilization right now. It might be a narrative over on the left. It might be something driven over here with the economy. But for sure it has something to do with the sun, and that's what's being covered up. That's why all the excuses are out there. You're seeing it with your own eyes. Like nobody can't not see it anymore. Right? So there had to be an excuse built in for the reasons that the changes were coming. Supposedly man-made, so you won't freak out and panic because there's really nothing you can do except hold on and ride out the next multi-century cycle. Well, I encourage you to check through the past and see the best way to do that. Many ways. Get prepared. Grow your own food. Get your communities together. Understand how to filter your water. Understand how to repair tools. Understand animal husbandry. There's a huge amount of solutions for this, but nobody's talking about it. And I think that's on purpose. Just my own thought, though. I do thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the video so you can share solutions and ideas in these times of change. Bye for now.